yeah, here we go. How not to get fucked in porn. So basically talking about ethics, porn that can be produced in an ethical way, in a better way. And I will be also talking about the role of intimacy coordinator within the adult industry. So first, I would like to talk about a few challenges that we are facing in the industry, though some of them, they are not only related to the industry, but also generally to producing intimate scenes. And I'm sure that many of you are aware of those challenges, but I will just run quickly through some of them. And I'm sure there are many, many more of them than this, what I will say in a few seconds. Then later, I would like to tell you a bit more who is an intimacy coordinator, what they do, and how this role can look within the adult industry. And I will also talk about some of the professional practices, and I will try to connect this information with some practical examples of how the role of intimacy coordinator can work. So let's go to challenges. I have put the challenges in 3 main categories. I thought that's maybe just easier this way. And so boundaries, that's something that I believe is super, super important, but often consent and boundaries are assumed. And what I mean by this is that often people think that because someone agreed to work in a porn company, they are comfortable with everything, and we actually don't have to talk about boundaries. And that's very much incorrect. Sometimes people don't know how to express their own boundaries, or they don't know if they are allowed to do so. Creating a space, and I don't mean a physical space, but generally creating an opportunity where people can actually voice their boundaries, where they can be comfortable talking about their boundaries and not being stressed out or worry that someone will judge them negatively because of their boundaries. It's very important to have space that allows it. And also sometimes director or producer, you name it, may not know how to ask about the boundaries, how to discuss those boundaries. Another thing are unprofessional practices, and there are many of the things that can fall into this category, and few of them are obviously physical and mental abuse, and well, that is happening, unfortunately, and it's an often thing. Sometimes it's something intentional and sometimes unintentional. Inappropriate sexual behaviors on the set, things like this are happening, and like, sorry for the language, I will use an explicit language, so I hope that's okay, but if someone minds, then also please let me know. I will just don't do it in the future. But I have heard stories that some people, and people who shouldn't be on the set, enter the set, and they were basically jerking off to the scene that is being recorded. Like, that's extremely unprofessional to do something like this. And also how the people, the performers, how they are feeling when something like this is happening. The ignorance toward STI test results. So, for example, on purpose not revealing positive test results, yes, just so the shoot can go ahead. And lack of transparency, not explaining to the performers how the shoot will be managed, what will be happening during the shoot day, and where the media will end up, who will be on the shoot. Things like this. So all those things fall into the category of unprofessional practices. Also, capturing of ID and having documentation for everything. And also, no agency for performers. And here I have an example, and again, it's not very positive example, but a friend of mine, when she was starting a career in the industry, she went to a casting or a call for a job, and basically the producer who was on this casting, he forced himself on her and told her that if she just say anything to anyone, she's not going to get the job. So she was threatened that she's going to lose the job, but also the fact that if she goes to police, she told me that police probably would say, well, you signed up for porn, so what did you expect? And that's so unprofessional. And it's still happening. And I believe that if there would be a person on the set or even on the casting call, because an intimacy coordinator is someone who should be introduced already in the beginning of the production process. If there would be this person who is an independent person, they would be able to say what actually has happened, and they would provide an agency for this performer. They would be able to not justify, but they would be able to say, yes, this has, actually this thing wouldn't happen, because there would be the third person who would say, what the fuck, this shouldn't be happening. I have a note here on the bottom in the presentation saying that being professional within the industry allows us to be taken seriously out of the industry, because on many occasions, when I spoke with people who are out of the industry, who are consumers of pornography, they have so many different beliefs about how porn is produced and what is happening on the set, that it's incredible with how many things people can come up. And I believe that introducing more of the professional practices within the industry would help us being taken seriously. That means also that we could open bank accounts without any problems. And yeah. So the role of intimacy coordinator. As some of you may know, the role of intimacy coordinator was introduced in mainstream cinema around 2018, so around second wave of Me Too movement. And this role was maturing on the scene of mainstream cinema and theater. However, pornography has been excluded. Even like today, when I was looking to social media, I found an Instagram post saying that the Cambridge Dictionary introduced the term of intimacy coordinator into the dictionary. And when I was reading through this explanation, it explicitly said that it's about simulated sex. So nowhere real sex scenarios are considered. And I think that's actually quite bad, because as you can see on the screen, the role of intimacy coordinator was created to ensure the professional treatment of people who are involved in the production of intimate scenes. And within the adult industry, we do work with people. As far as I know, we do not work with robots, we work with people, and they deserve professional treatment. They deserve safe work environment, they deserve respect. And many times I said that turning our heads away and like swiping it under the rug, hold the whole subject of pornography in the industry is not going to help anyone. It actually will introduce more damage. So what I believe in is that we need to lean into the problem, let's say, or the challenges, and seek the ways how we can introduce professional and ethical working environment. So professional practices. So we already talked about challenges, and we talked about the role of intimacy coordinator briefly. Also still on the topic of intimacy coordinator role, I would like to point out that the role of intimacy coordinator for adult media sets is in in certain regards different to what is the role of intimacy coordinator for mainstream film. There are things that overlapping, but there are also big differences. And one of them, one of the obvious ones, it's working with real sex scenarios. So professional practices. I decided to present you with some of the professional practices that I think are important and we can talk about. Also, afterwards, we can have a discussion about this. I would love that. I would love to hear your questions. So like I see some things popping up in Q&A and I will look to it afterwards. And so professional practices. I have chosen ethics, power dynamics on set, and communication. Let's go here. So ethical porn. It's a fancy term that many companies are using, and there are some people who love it and some people who hate it. And so we need to remember that ethical pornography, it's not what we see on it's not the final product. Yes, those are the actions that are taken during the production process, yes, or before or during production process. It's not the final outcome, yes. So the scene doesn't have to be produced cinematographically to be ethical. It's what we do before we actually see the final product. So ethical pornography is not a genre, it's more of an action than a category. And that's really, really important thing to remember. I'm going to share with you now a quote from a person that I interviewed on my podcast. It's his name is Richard Lawrence, and he is the owner of Fake, Beautiful Agony, and I Shot Myself. I think those are his websites. And I asked him about ethical pornography, and this is what he said. Porn isn't just about supplying labor in the market economy. This is a very personal investment on the part of the supplier. You need to have a more humanistic approach when you are making porn. Listen to people and make sure they are comfortable in every step of the process. So he emphasizes here the process, the management of the process, and our approach, the humanistic approach, which is also very important. And I'm going to talk about this in a second also. And if you want to listen to this interview, it's on my website. And later in the end, I will have all the links so we can take a look to it. But I think it was very actually informative interview and interesting. So yeah, if you want, go ahead. So when we talk about ethically produced media, there are several elements or groups that contain different elements. And so ethically produced media presents the right values. So I strongly believe that ethically produced pornography must be inclusive and diverse. Why? Because human sexual expression, or generally sexual pleasure, is something that is diverse. And I'm going to use here something that one of the authors, Linda Williams, she's a scholar and she wrote a book called Hardcore. And I'm going to use something that she said in her book because I think it's quite interesting statement, an important statement. So she says, porn is no longer about patriarchal power of heterosexual pleasure. And I don't mean here to say that if someone enjoys pornography that presents heterosexual pleasure and more of a patriarchal power, that this is bad and we shouldn't do that. No, I think pornography can show much more than this, can be much more diverse, and as long as the media was produced in a respectable way, it's consensual, and everyone involved enjoys doing it, then that's fine. I think that's whatever you decide to do, as long as it is consensual, respectable, and pleasurable for everyone involved. Yes, so another one is safe. Ethically produced media is safe for everyone involved. And what I mean here by this, it's physical, mental, and sexual health safety. Yes, so all these three elements are in this one category. And I know that when someone produces media, they are probably very attached to it, what they producing. They put a lot of effort in it, a lot of money, and they would like to have some money back, some income from what they are making. But we cannot forget about the human-centric approach in the production of entire in the entire production. Yes, so yes, money is important. We want to earn money in what we do. It helps us to live and helps us to produce more media. But if this becomes more important than people who are on the set, people that we are working with, that's not good at all. And so the last one from those three is ethically produced media is created according to the principles of informed consent. So informed consent is, imagine you go to a doctor and to discuss a surgery, you're going to have a surgery. And you get into the office and the doctor must inform you about all possible risks involved in the surgery and must inform you how the surgery will go, how it will look, what will happen, what steps they will take. And the same applies to adult industry. So the performer must be informed about all the risks just so they can make an informed decision. They need to understand what will happen during the production process just so they can make an informed decision. I would like to tell you about, here I will have two scenarios, but maybe let's start with one that is a little bit more general. So imagine that production team organized a big shoot, yes, and there was a lot of money invested in the location, in the gear. People were hired or are hired, and they're on the set preparing everything. Everyone is excited to go ahead. And unfortunately, due to certain reasons, a performer changes their mind. They decide that, well, they cannot do the shoot, yes, whatever reason it will be. Something may have happened. Maybe they got call from home and some bad news, they got some bad news and they cannot proceed with the shoot. They already feel pretty bad about canceling and bringing this onto everyone. But in situations like this, a role of intimacy coordinator is crucial, is very important, because if we would have an intimacy coordinator in situation like this, they can look to this, what is happening from a very neutral point of view. So they put aside all the disappointment, anger, and sadness, and they look for possible solutions. Yes, how can we move forward from this point? And so they involve critical thinking. So they gather the information, they analyze what is happening, and they come up with possible scenarios to move forward. Yes, they know that putting more blame on a performer who already is pulling away from the shoot because of some reasons is not going to help anyone. Yes. The part of critical thinking actually is to be empathetic and kind to other people. And I don't mean any like religious kindness here. I mean more of understanding another human being from the place where they are right now. without any judgment, without a negative judgment, without bringing more blame on them, because it's really not necessary and it's not going to help to resolve the situation. So having the intimacy coordinator here would be really helpful and for everyone, beneficial for everyone. Plus, intimacy coordinator they are preparing for situations like this. They already have certain conversations before the scene actually happens, and they are preparing for different possible scenarios. And good news is that critical thinking is something that is learnable. So it takes a lot of practice, but it's learnable. Another scenario that in this situation I wanted to talk about, it's a scenario where we have two performers, female and male, and they are going to do anal penetration scene. So the female performer, she agreed to do it. She ticked off boxes on checklist. She said, yes, I will be fine to do this scene. And the scene takes 2 days. Yes. So on the first day, they performed the scene, all good, excellent. The scene went really well. And on that day after the shoot, the female performer no longer feels okay doing the anal penetration day after. Maybe they just don't feel healthy enough, or they ate something, they don't feel well enough, or just mentally they are not okay to do this again, whatever reason. On the second day, she comes to the shoot and there is no one who would have a conversation with her about her consent, about her boundaries. No one who would create a space for this sort of conversations. And again, an intimacy coordinator is someone who comes in here to play to this scenario. So intimacy coordinator would come on the beginning of second day to this performer and to both performers, but in this case to this female performer, and would have a conversation, open conversation, would ask questions. How do you feel today? Are we okay to go ahead with all the scenarios? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Is everything okay? Just a simple check. It doesn't have to be long, but a simple check-in to ensure that everyone is still okay doing what we discussed before. We need to remember that consent is an ongoing conversation. Yes, it's good to have checklists. We should have like checklists and documentation, but we are only people and things happen to us, and we need this permission to change our consent. Yes, and we need this space where we can voice it, when we can talk about this, a safe space. Yes, where no one will judge us because something has happened and we change our mind. And going back to this performer, I know she was devastated afterwards. Because they went, so no one asked her anything and they went ahead with the scene. And she really wasn't happy about that. She was very, very devastated afterwards, mentally and physically. She didn't feel well. And as far as I know, she didn't perform afterwards. Another topic, one of my favorites is power dynamic. So it's a very subtle thing sometimes, power, and we need to learn to pay attention to it and to understand how we can actually deal with power on the set, because sometimes it plays its role intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. So let's again look to a very brief scenario. So we have a director on a shoot day, and the director last night had a brilliant idea that there will be a new scene that they will add to already what was discussed, and they will add it to the shoot. So the director comes into the shoot on the day of the shoot, obviously, and says that we will introduce a new thing. The performers are not really very pleased with this. But they go ahead with it because they don't know, like, if they can say no to it. They don't know what will happen if they say no. So they agreed to do this extra new scene. And you may think like, oh, well, everyone can speak for themselves. So why didn't they, like, why did they agree to it? Yes, even if they were uncomfortable. Well, as I said, we are only human beings, and saying no, especially if you see someone being very enthusiastic about something, saying no to someone is sometimes hard. Yes, and even voicing certain saying that we are not happy to proceed with something is really hard. We are not we were not taught to react positively when we hear no, because if we have this great idea and someone comes to us and say, yeah, no, it's not something I'm okay with, then we feeling like we are hurting this other person. Yes, like they had this brilliant idea, we hurting their intentions, we hurting their feelings, and voicing our no to other people is hard, and hearing no is hard. And another thing that played in the scenario of the director just bringing a new idea is unequal distribution of power on the set. So the director on the film set holds certain power. They shouldn't get rid of this power. It's what it is. They have power over certain things. But this unequal distribution of power is not necessarily bad. It's how the power is used in certain situations. Yes, so it's depending how the power is used. And performers may be unhappy or not comfortable saying no to something, because they may be afraid that if they say no to the director, they may lose their job. They may not be hired again in the future. And so the role of intimacy coordinator, if we introduce here the role of intimacy coordinator, we're giving power to the performers. We empower them to voice their concerns. Yes, we give them the space where they are comfortable to express their boundaries, and they are comfortable to talk about consent. But because we introduced a person that brings the balance within the power distribution. Also, another flipped scenario here may be that we have on the set very famous performer who did a lot of shoots, and it's very well known, but we have a director who didn't do many shoots. They are just starting, not really well known. This performer, I'm not saying that this is always a situation, yes, just an example of flipped power dynamic. This performer may influence how director will produce media, what they will produce. And this is not how it should be. Like, yes, the performer is, because they are in a position of higher power, they cannot demand everything happens as they wish. And the same director, because they are in a higher position of power, they cannot demand that everything happens as they wish. There should be a conversation about a lot of different things. So yes, it's what I said. So the power to the performers, empowering them. And I had an important note here, I think. Yes, so this one. So let me just read that out. I just need to, I cannot move anything. Okay, let's go with this like this. So the intimacy coordinator for adult films set isn't there to replace or diminish the director's role, okay? It's there to balance between the performer and the director to ensure the healthy and professional relationship between the two. Yes, again, it's a balance. It's like a person in between they are not only to protect performers, because if they are there only to protect performers, no director will want to work with them, or no production company will want to work with them. If they are only to protect the production company, well, no performer is going to have an honest conversation with them. That's not the point. Yes, so next one is communication. And yes, so the communication is a very, very important aspect that is woven through the entire process of production of media. And the role of intimacy coordinator, as I said before, it's not only on the set, but it starts way before the production day or the actual shoot day. So already there, the intimacy coordinator is communicating with the director, with the performers, having open conversations with them about the scenes that will be produced, about the boundaries, about the comfort, what will happen on the shoot day. And then later, the intimacy coordinator is present on the shoot day. Yes, so for example, in the morning of the shoot, there is time to discuss with the performers, again, their boundaries, yes, if they are okay with everything as we agreed on before, a few days before, or when we are preparing for the shoot. Is everyone feeling okay right now? Yes. Maybe we can perform different boundary exercises, yes, to ensure that everyone is okay with everything what we're going to do. So we're creating the space for performers to be comfortable with expressing their boundaries and their consent and concerns, if anything. And then on the day of the shoot, the intimacy coordinator is there present all the time. And if anything happens, they will be there to step in. Yeah, say like, oh, 1 second, we need to pause because this is not something we agreed on. Let's say one of the performers did something that they didn't agree on. So they are they have a power to stop the situation. And then they go to the performers, they talk, they discuss, they have open communication. Again, communication woven through the entire process. And then even the role still is present in the post-production moment of the production process. And the communication, effective communication is really not easy. And there are different elements for effective communication. So some of them, I have listed them here. So it's the ability to ask questions from a place of curiosity, really wanting to know, being curious about this other person with whom we have a conversation, not only reading the questions from the list or questions that we memorized or we were told to memorize. No, diving a little bit deeper, digging a little bit deeper. Willingness to listen and understand. Okay, it's easy to talk. It's easy for me to right now to talk, but well, maybe not that easy, but it's easy to talk in general. But we don't have a habit to pause and listen what this other person want to say to us and truly understand. And it takes a lot of practice to actually hear what the other person is saying to us. And asking the questions in the right way. So a lot of people say asking the right question. And yes, perhaps there are a few right questions to ask, but I think it's more important to ask questions in the right way. So asking a lot of open-ended questions and pausing after the question and allowing the person, giving the person the space to talk about the things that we ask them. And elements or generally effective communication is a skill that intimacy coordinator needs to master. At least the intimacy coordinator that is going to work with real sex scenarios. And the good thing about this that the skill of communicating and the skill of critical thinking, all those things, all those elements are learnable. Yes. So if we have certain educational program that allows you to practice those things, and then you will be able to learn it, and afterwards, if you keep practicing, you will understand it better and you will become better in this. The last thing that I have on my slide, well, one before the last one actually, is something that I came across when I was talking with different people about sexual rights. But I'm going to present this to you in the context of intimacy coordinator. So an intimacy coordinator on adult film sets, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. And if, again, if I spoke too fast, I'm really, really sorry, but I already had like 3 copies today. And I'm going to leave you with my information. So if you would like to ask me any questions, and I'm going to look in the Q&A window in a second, but if you would like to ask me any questions or just have a conversation about ethics, about intimacy on screen, please send me an email, connect with me on social media. I really would love to hear from you, and I love having those conversations. So please, and ask me any questions, because that helps me actually to think about this process, about this role, and about ethics within the industry. It helps me to think about this more and in depth. So I will stop sharing now, and I will now look to the Q&A. So I don't know if I will pronounce the names correctly, but Julio said, if or when someone calls out unprofessional behavior, what typically next happens? Calling out, for example, calling out someone who is masturbating on set. Well, first of all, I think is so if there is an intimacy coordinator, they need to ensure, first of all, that only necessary people are on the set. Yes, so no bystanders are coming into the set. If something like this happens, let's say the person that shouldn't be masturbating on the set starts masturbating, they should is stopping directly, and we need to take that person out of the set. And we also need to have some sort of like discussion, perhaps with the performers, if they are okay going ahead, and if they are feeling okay with what just have happened. Yes, so of course it depends on the it depends on the unprofessional behavior, because there is a whole range of them. But this person who behaves unprofessionally cannot just stay on the set. We cannot allow this behavior happening. Yes, the things that we allowed become like a part of our practice, and that's not, if it's unprofessional, no, we don't want this. So we need to take that person away from the set, and we need to ensure if the performers are good to go with what we agreed on. And then Julio, again, you have another question. May performers contractually request an intimacy coordinator? May production companies be compelled to include an intimacy coordinator? Great question. So now, when it comes to adult industry, we are in a phase where some productions company work with intimacy coordinators, but it's not really something set in stone that intimacy coordinator must be there. But if the role and it is becoming more popular, the performers are aware what benefits actually they will have from having an intimacy coordinator on the set, then I think requesting an intimacy coordinator will become a normal thing. Another thing is what I know have happened in the mainstream film industry, mainstream film cinema. is that actually the performers, the actors started requesting the intimacy coordinator, and then I think they are called guilds. They put in their the rights, I think this is called the rights of the actors. They put their information that with every intimate scene, the intimacy coordinator must be on the set, and they define what is the intimate scene for them, of course. So I think if we would manage to do something like this in the industry, then we would see more often the intimacy coordinator on the set. And actually, for me, connecting with, I keep connecting with different companies and different institutions to get that introduced. So if you're in a way interested, or if you can help with introducing this role into adult industry, it will be very helpful, and I would be super grateful, because it's a lot of work, and sometimes it's hard to navigate through it. Then Greg has a question also. What percentage of on studio porn videos use an intimacy coordinator? Do studios see the value, or is it left to performers to advocate for one? So I don't know what is the percentage. I have no idea. I know that only some of the studios do use intimacy coordinators. So I know about Erika Last using intimacy coordinator. I know, I don't remember what's the name of the studio, but they are in Mexico and they do use intimacy coordinator. There are a few other directors that I spoke with, and they also want to have intimacy coordinator on their future productions. So definitely there is a need, and for example, the value for the director or for the production company in general is that if you have performers who enjoy what they do, who feel that they were respected, and who knows that they were in a comfortable space, they will perform better, and the camera will pick this up. And so if we have happy performers, we will have a better shoot. Yes, so that's definitely a need that companies should be noticing. And also not sometimes, but quite often, I notice that when I speak with the directors, or producers, they have a lot of different things on their head happening. Yes, like they have to control, or they have to work on a lot of different aspects of the production process. So having someone who is only working with the performers, ensuring their comfort, talking about their boundaries or consent, it's taking something off their shoulders, something that they don't have to worry about. And a lot of directors said that it's very helpful for them. They come to the set with what they have to do, and the performers are ready, and we are ready to go, and they don't need to have in-depth conversations with the performers. Yes, it's an emotional labor. Yes, and if the director has to do a lot of it in different areas, this can be really overwhelming. And then this is not the conversations with the performers are not always done in the right way if there is no intimacy coordinator. Can a performer have an intimacy coordinator as part of their team that advocates for them personally, no matter if the production has one on set for production, like an agent or manager? I would say yes, I think that's possible, but then that means that this intimacy coordinator may be partial to the performer. Yes, and ideally we need someone independent, or someone who understands that they need to they're there to balance the situation. Yes, they are, as I said earlier, if the intimacy coordinator will be only protecting the performers, no director will want to work with them. And then if the intimacy coordinator only protects the company, no performer will talk to them or will need them. Yes, we need to have some, I don't know how to explain it right, but I feel like it has to be taken out a bit from equation and just, okay, that's the separate person that can balance the situation. And yeah, I had a thought and I lost it. I wanted to add something else to it. I'm sorry, I lost it. So I think, yeah, I click here. Oh. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy that it makes sense. Thank you so much. Again, if anyone has more questions, please email me and or send me a message on Instagram. I would love to connect and would love to hear from you. And thank you for being here. And thank you for Pineapple for having me. It's really an honor to be able to do it for you guys. And yeah, thank you.